Sup people, it's Multiplier, and today mastering basics, cause there's some basics you need to know for mastering, and I is gonna tell you what they are. You may be thinking, that's not Ableton, what's going on? This is Tractor Pro 2 actually, version 2.5.1 or 2 or something like that, but it's Tractor, and that's cause this is by far the best way to demonstrate the basics, cause as a record label owner type label boss guy, I've seen quite a lot of demos and tracks and people sending me shit, and there's a few basic things that people are completely missing, and you need to know them, cause without them you're screwed and your tracks are going to sound weak and the drums aren't going to sound any good. You're going to be like all confused and stuff when Skrillex doesn't return your emails. So basically I'm going to show you. Let's choose a track as an example. Here you go, Skrillex and Nero remix. You can trust this will be mastered well. Nice, looks pretty. Anyway, I'm not going to play it, otherwise this video gets taken down, because whoever owns this track are annoying and don't allow you to play it on YouTube for free. So I'm just going to whack that down so you can see the waveform. Cool. So why am I showing you the waveform? It's because the waveform is the important bit. Shit like EQ, reverb, stereo widening, exciting, all that stuff is kind of in the mastering chain, but really you can do all that in mixing, and it's not a mastering specific thing. Mastering guys do use those things, but that's mainly to kind of fix mistakes with EQ from the guy who mixed it did, or maybe they're just giving it that final shine with an exciter, or widening it because the mix wasn't quite wide enough. But yeah, those are mainly fixing or effects. The most important mastering specific thing is compression and limiting, and that's basically getting the waveform looking like this. Now you're thinking, well, yeah, that just looks like a waveform. Why am I looking at this? It's cause you need to be analysing the waveforms of your favourite tracks in the genre you're mastering for, so you know what your final master needs to look like. Cause this is I guess it's dubstep, but it's at drum and bass speed. It's just that bro step shit, whatever you want to call it. If you're producing a track in this genre and your track doesn't look like this, both in colour and the size and stuff, you're not going to sound good. It's going to sound weak in comparison, and you're going to be all annoyed. So, sort of things you want to look out for is, well, let's use the obvious ones, the colour. In this case, it's pink, and if you use Tractor a lot, you'll know that's because that's a combination of red and kind of whitish blue, really more white than anything, but just really light blue. And that's because the way it works in Tractor is the redder is the lower frequency, and the more kind of blue to white it is, the higher frequency it is, and then everything in between is just goes over like green and orange and shit like that. So why is it pink? Well, that's because there's a lot of sub bass, and most importantly, there's a lot of high frequency stuff, and that's what gives it the pink. This green is kind of mid-range, and then you see bits of orange anywhere, that's kind of lower mid-range. But this pink means that there's sub bass and a lot of top end, and if your dubsteppy tracks don't look pink, there's probably something wrong with them. There's a reason it's pink, and it's to make it as exciting and kind of in your face and have as much impact as possible. So that's one thing. Shouldn't have told you that first, because the most important bit is actually now, and that is the size of the waveform, how high it is, and what elements are at what height. That's the whole point of mastering. Most importantly is getting it loud and getting your final track to be hitting where it should be hitting. So, for example, let's zoom in. Doing. Now you can see, or you should be able to tell, that's a kick. That's probably a kick and a snare. But yeah, kick, 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 kick. You notice how it goes to the top. Kicks always go to the top. That's fundamental. It still surprises me how many people send me tracks and the kicks aren't the loudest element in the mix. Well, not the loudest, probably the wrong word. The fact the kicks don't hit the top and everything else is slightly below. That's so important. So important. I should have started the video with that. But hey, that's how I do these videos. I do them in the wrong order because I'm just doing it in one take, improvising. Yeah, I'm going to say it again. The kicks have to be kind of hitting the top. Have to be hitting like, well, not technically 0 dB, but like minus 0.3. The kicks have to be hitting there. Everything else has to be below. If your kicks are even 0.2 dB less than that, you're doing it wrong. You need those kicks to be hitting. And if you're thinking, well, I can't keep turning up the kicks, otherwise the bass isn't loud enough. Turn the bass down. Stop being a stupid head. Need those kicks to be hitting the top. I'm going to show you in another track, for example. Okay, let's choose a totally different genre just to illustrate it. Take Some Time from Chris Lovely. Now, this is a completely mental track, but you can see, oh, turn that down, kicks right at the top. In this case, he's gone mental and completely flattened and made them super loud, but the kicks are at the top. There, again, the kicks right at the top. Even though he's got pretty big bass and there's a lot of bass in this track, kicks are still at the top. You can have a lot of bass and the kicks still hitting the top. Show you another one. Look, Feed Me, kicks hitting the top. Kicks hitting the top. Everything else, you fit around that. That's super important. That's why I've spent about 4 minutes telling you. That's the what's going on with the audio is fixed. That's the kind of rule number one. Get your kicks hitting the top and then you build everything around the kicks. So it's like when you're mixing, your kicks are the highest kind of thing peaking in all your tracks. So if you got, where's Ableton gone? If you got loads of tracks, your kick needs to be the highest thing. If you look at all these numbers, just another tip, comes like that, drag it up and you can see where shit's actually peaking. Your kicks need to be the highest. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but seems to be the thing that people miss most when they're just sending me shit. The kicks aren't right at the top. Just get them at the top. They need to be the loudest, not the loudest, but kind of the highest amplitude thing. Cool. I think now you've probably got it in your brains that the kicks need to be hitting pretty much 0 dB. So, what about all the other shit? You can see here that everything else, in this case, because it's kind of an aggressive dubsteppy thing, is pretty much near the top, which is, again, an important bit. If you want your tracks to sound as loud and as heavy as these, your bass needs to be sustained right near the top. Like here you see, you got your kick, and then the bass comes in immediately, and it's pretty much just as loud as it gets. It can't really get much louder than that. Like there's a bit of dynamics in it, but it is right up there. The bass isn't low, it's nearly as high as the kicks, just a touch under. Because remember, rule one, kicks are the highest like peaking thing, and they go right to the top. And you use compressors and limiters to kind of achieve this. But I'm not going to go into detail on the engineering side because it's quite complicated and it will take ages, but I might do that one day. The most important bit is you understand what a track should look like, because that's the key. Once you know it should look like this, and you know, for example, that all the kind of mid-range or whatever you want to call it before the drop is about this high, that's it. Once you know that, it's just a case of tweaking your compression settings, tweaking your limiting settings until it looks like this. Things like for your breakdown, it needs to look about this tall. If it looks a lot less tall, like for example, have I got any examples? What about one of my really old ones that wasn't mastered at all? Where's it gone? I should probably choose the very first thing I ever did. This one. This was the very first track I ever did, and you can tell it's not mastered properly because you can see this is the kind of, it looks like there's nothing there. Like here, for example, this should be looking like that. This wasn't mastered. This was before I knew what I was doing, like a few years ago. This bit should be looking like that. That proves that it's not loud enough and that needs work. Give you another example. See these kicks? They're not hitting the top. I've broken rule 1. That's because I didn't know the rules back then. But you see what I mean? All proper tracks look the same. The kicks hit the top. And in the case of things like dubstep, it's all pink and the bass goes near the top. And things like, looking at the waveform here, you can pretty much tell how loud you need to be setting shit. Because in like the bit before the drop, whatever you want to call this, the break, I don't know, all this blue, or in some cases green, it's all this sort of level. The greens are slightly less, the blues are slightly higher, and all the tracks are like this. So it's just the case, once you know this, using your production skills to get your track looking like this. You can see in this case, it's all over the place. The kicks aren't loud enough. This green's looking better. It goes too quiet, and then this is actually better here. You can see at the drop, the kicks are louder and the bass is loud, but even so, it's still not as much as it should do. To give you an example, let's try and find a properly made bit of electro. I don't know. Is this electro? Yeah. See here, the kicks go right to near the top. They don't hit. Now this is close. I wasn't as bad on the drop here. You can see around here, it should all be louder. This wasn't a well-made track, but I made it ages ago. You can see some of my newer stuff. It's way better. So yeah. Basically, fuck, I always ramble. The main bit of like advice is analyze proper tracks, using tracked as waveforms. These color things are my favorite because you can really distinguish the elements. Like you can see the kicks and you can see just everything really clearly. You can differentiate frequencies and you can just see what's going on. Get your shit looking like pro shit, basically. And I'll try and do another tutorial, another stage of exactly how you can use compressors and limiters and stuff to get it that way. But the most important bit is you analyze tracks in the genre you're trying to sound like and get your thing looking visually at the waveform similar. Because if you do that, you can be sure that it's going to sound good. Because it's like with low end, it's hard to mix low end. You can't do that shit by ears unless you're in the most expensive room in the world and you've got 20 years experience. You just don't know where to set your bass levels. So use your eyes to make sure your bass is hitting the right level. And I'm going to be completely honest, I set my bass levels by eye. A lot of other pros do, even noisier. I mean, they have expensive rooms. They still set their bass by eye. Most pros do, even if you have an expensive room, because things like getting the bass and the kicks at the right level, there's no art to it. It's like a science. Your kicks hit the top, they hit minus 0.3 dB, and the bass goes pretty much right up to that, like just below the kicks. Unless you're doing something more chilled, like I don't know, this one's I think it's more chilled. I take it back. That one's not more chilled. Is this one more chilled? This one's slightly more chilled. So you can see, for example, these kicks go to the top, but the bass isn't quite as close to the kicks as it is in an aggressive song. So the bass is kind of at a lower level. So if you wanted to make a track like Trickle or whatever, Mania, just slightly more chilled, but you still want it to sound that sort of loudness. You'd look at this track and go, right, kicks need to hit the top, the bass needs to be looking about this big in Tractor. So export from Ableton or whatever, load into Tractor, have a look. That's my main bit of advice. So 15 minutes of rambling, that's what I do, but hopefully at least if you're new to mastering, you've got it in your head that you need to get your tracks looking like the pros do. And rule number 1, get your kicks hitting the top. It's so annoying when I see tracks that sound really good, but the kicks just aren't set loud enough. It's like, you can't get that wrong. Once you know it, it's like, there's no art, there's no creativity. You just set them as the loudest, like amplitude wide thing in your mix, and then you build everything else around that. And it also makes compressing and limiting easier, because you know that your kicks are going to be triggering the compressors and the limiters. And technically, if you send off a track for mastering and the kick isn't the loudest thing in the mix, they can kind of save it, but it just makes everything really difficult. And just do it right. It's not everyone does it. It needs to happen, and that's why I've rammed it down your face. So yeah, that's the basics behind mastering, getting your shit loud, and you do that by looking at waveforms and getting it that loud yourself. And if I haven't put out a video on how to kind of use ozone or compressors and limiters to get your track looking like this yet, just YouTube that shit, like how to use ozone or how to limit mastering or whatever, and I'm sure something will pop up, or just guess. Cool. I've been Multiplier, probably useless, but maybe you learnt something. At least that was my rant about people not setting their kicks loud enough. That's out my system now, so now I can get on with making lovely music. Follow me below, got loads of YouTube, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter. Got a track out as well recently, Rage on Beatport, check that shit out. That was mastered really well, for example. Maybe it's here. Rage. See? Kicks hitting the top. Look, it looks like that Skrillex track. Kicks hitting the top, and then all this bass goes right near the top too. And it's pink, just like I told you. Also, like I told you, see this blue? It's the right level. It's the same sort of height. Just to prove it needs to look the same, and this proves it. Here's a track I mastered. I mastered it because it's the demo. I fucking ramble a lot. Oh well. I'll let you get on with mastering. Cool.